Well, hello everyone. Today we're diving into this concept of equivalent fractions on a number line. So let's kind of just dive in and get going. We've been talking a lot about fractions lately, remembering that idea, like if we're talking about a fraction, right, it is a part of something. So it's like kind of like how we break maybe whole numbers apart into parts or fractions such as. And the concept of equivalent is, you have watched multiple videos, you will know this is one of my favorite words in all of math, that concept that something has the same value. It is worth exactly the same, but it looks different. It's the best way to really think about it. Equivalent, right? That can often be confused with equal. Equal and equivalent are not the same. And here's my quick example. 3 and 3, those are equal, right? They look exactly the same. So they are equal. But if something is equivalent, it has a different look. For example, 1 plus 2, that is 3. 3 is 3. So these have the same value attached to them, but they look different, right? So that's that idea. So we're going to be looking at how do we create fractions on a number line and then use that process to make an equivalent fraction, to make a fraction that looks different, looks different, but has the same value. So let's just dive in. We're going to start, let's just start with a fraction here, right? We have 1/4 or 1 out of 4. So if you watched, again, fractions on the number line video, you will know then if we start this process, we know we're going to start on a 0, and we're only going to go to 1 because my fraction has no whole number here. There's nothing here, right? It's just a fraction, so it's less than 1. And then we're going to use the information that the fraction gives us. For example, our denominator, right? Denominator tells us how many parts we want to partition the number 1 into. So we're going to divide this number line into 4 equal parts. So one good way with 4 is find the middle, and find the middle of that middle and the middle of that middle, and you'll see we have 4 parts, right? We have a part here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And we do want to try to have each one of those parts be equal in size, right? It does need to be equal in size. I just know that when we're writing things with our own free hand, it's not always easy as doing that. All right, so let's label out what each one of these parts then represents, right? This is 1 out of 4, right? That's 1 out of 4. This is 2 out of 4. That's also known as 1/2, right? The middle is always 1/2. And then this is 3 out of 4, and then this would be, as a fraction, 4 out of 4, or 1, right? It's all of something. So we know now with this process that here is 1/4. Here it is. All right, there's 1/4. Okay, so first thing we did there is we just really plotted the fraction we had. Now remember, we're looking for an equivalent fraction now. We want something to be equivalent. So we want to know, like, what's another fraction? What's another fraction that would be the same thing as 1/4 on the number line? So to do that, I'm going to create a second number line, and we're going to just like really copy that exactly, right? I'm like, notice I'm like, here, I'll just kind of, I'm like using these lines already to help me. I'm like doing this exact same model. And then before we go any further with this, though, what I want to do is I want to think about how can we partition the second number line, right? Oh, here, let me at least do 0 and 1. I'm not going to label the other parts yet. How can we partition the second number line into other equal parts? And what I mean by that is like this, like check this out. Like what if I partitioned it here and here and here and here? Well, now this number line's been cut into more parts. If we look, it's been cut into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts, right? So now I have a second number line that has been partitioned into 8 parts. But notice the number line is the same size as the first number line. It's also only going to 1 like the first number line. So we have equivalent number lines. It's just they look different. So let me label out what these parts are then, because now if this is 8, that means this is 1 out of 8. This is 2 out of 8. This is 3 out of 8. 4 out of 8. 5 out of 8. 6 out of 8. 7 out of 8. And then this one would be 8 out of 8, or 1 whole, right? So now, here we go. We've just found ourselves an equivalent fraction. We have a fraction that has the exact same value as 1/4, but it looks different. And look, it's lined right up with it. So right here, what that's telling us is that 1/4, oh boy, where am I going to put this? Let's see, we can put this over here. 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. They're exactly the same. 1/4 of a pizza is the same amount of pizza as 2/8 of a pizza. 1/4 of $1 million is the exact same amount of money as 2/8 of $1 million. Like, that's what we mean by equivalent. So they look different, but because we've partitioned the second number line into more parts, it just still has the same value. Okay, so let's continue this out. Let's just practice this with another one. So let's see here. Let's think about what we did there. So the first step was we created first fraction on a number line, right? And then we created a second number line and partitioned it differently. And then we just found where the fractions, let's just say like matched, where they were the same. Okay, so that's kind of a wordy step-by-step now that I think about it, but that's really what we did, right? We took the fraction we were given, we put it on a number line, we created a second number line that was equivalent, we made it the same size, and then we partitioned it differently. And then we just kind of see where they match. So let's play with that. Let's take another fraction this time. Let's take 2/3. So our goal here is like, what's an equivalent fraction to 2/3, and how can we use a number line to help us? So again, step one, let's put 2/3 on a number line. So again, this is less than 1, so my number line's only going to go to 1. And the denominator tells me I need to partition this line into 3 parts. Thirds is difficult, I think. Well, that came out pretty good, right? There's 3 equal parts. And again, just so you know, the part I'm counting is between the 2 tick marks. Like, that's a part right there. And then here's a second part, and then the third part, right? So that's one of those things that's definitely, I think, I want you to be able to see, and it's hard to show over a screen, but I hope that makes some sense. So if we label this out, let's do this. This would be 0 out of 3. This is 0, there's nothing there. This is 1 out of 3, or 1/3. 2/3, or 2 out of 3. And again, this 1 is 3 out of 3. It's all of it. Okay, so 2/3 on this number line sits right here. So there's step 1. We just did that. There's 2/3. Now, to find an equivalent fraction using a number line, we're going to build a second number line, but we want that number line to be exactly the same size and everything. So notice I'm like lining everything up again. So even my tick marks, if you could even see, I start my pen up here and I just slide it down, boom, to make sure they're even, right? So there, okay. And this is still 0, and this is still 1. That won't change. But now I'm going to partition this differently. And again, I think one of the easiest ways to do that is just find the middle of each section, right? Let's just cut this in half right there. Cut this in half right there. Cut this in half right there. And now I have more equal parts, right? They're equal. They're equal in measurement. But how many pieces? Well, let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I just made 6 equal parts. So let's label that out. This would be 1 out of 6, 2 out of 6, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6. And now we just see where's 2/3? That's the fraction we're using. Where does 2/3 line up with another fraction? Like, where are they lining up? And if you look straight down here, we'll see that 4/6 is the equivalent fraction. So again, this means that 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. So that's just something to be thinking about, like how we can use number lines to find equivalent fractions through those steps. And again, just remember that that's what we're doing, right? You know, like model, I'll rephrase this, model the first fraction on a number line. We want to create a second number line and then partition it differently, right? Cut it up in a different way. And then your final step in that is just let's say what matches with your first fraction. And that would be equivalent fractions on a number line. Like, we'll continue to practice this, right? We just want to make sure that was just an introduction. So go ahead and take a look at that, practice this out, ask questions. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for your hard work. And thank you for everything you do. And we'll see you soon.